Hey, Suzi here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share this special message with you. My co-host Michelle and I love masterminds. Not only do we belong to masterminds, but we've also co-hosted the 12-month Marketing Success Mastermind for almost 10 years now. And it is the leading mastermind for women business owners who want to grow their business with a specific focus on marketing. Now, this group is usually completely booked out, and very occasionally we open the doors and invite a handful of new people in. And we've just opened up applications for a few days only for a handful of women to join us before our next in-person event in August. You can apply now at herbusinessmastermind.com. If you're growing your business and you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed, or maybe you have a split focus when it comes to your marketing, this could be exactly what you're looking for. The results that women in the mastermind are getting are extraordinary. We're seeing them double and triple their revenue, have their best year ever, and even hit the $1 million mark. Plus, they're launching courses and memberships and growing e-commerce stores and even entering new international markets. Apply today at herbusinessmastermind.com. Hi, you're listening to the Content Sells podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 266. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi, I'm doing great. And I am just so looking forward to diving right on in today because we're going to talk about something that can feel a little bit, shall I say, edgy, a little bit vulnerable, maybe even a tiny bit scary, but it's also one of the most powerful things you could do in your marketing. And Suzi, I also think in a broader sense in our journeys as a business owner.
Yes, and you and I both subscribe to the idea that being a business owner is the greatest personal development program you could ever sign up for. So I think that's exactly on target for what we're talking about today. And I'll speak for myself. I've definitely had times in my business when I have been doing all the things, the funnels, the content, the campaigns, and on paper, everything looked right. But underneath, something felt off and I wasn't getting the kind of response that I knew was possible. And when I really sat with it, I realized that I was holding back. I was holding something back, whether that was a belief or a truth that needed to be said or a message I felt strongly about, but I wasn't saying it. And maybe I thought it was too much, or I didn't want to be seen as being too much, or it would put people off, or it was an unpopular way of thinking, or even that it wasn't on brand for me and my business and how I'd been showing up until that point.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know for me, I felt the same. You know, as you're speaking there, I'm resonating with that. And I think we've all been there. I've certainly seen the impact of when I do share more courageously in my messaging and also with the work I do with my clients, you know, getting part of what I do is helping people to cross that bridge of,
Right.
oh, well, you know, this is a truth. I really wish I could say that. And then it's like, well, why can't you say that? What would happen if you did? And there's a real pattern here that when you can say the thing you're kind of busting to say, but maybe you've held back on it, often you get an amazing response, even more than you could have imagined. And I know we see this tendency to hold back, like we've been talking about with ourselves, but also with so many women business owners. You know, as you're listening, you may not be a beginner. Like you may have experience, you may have credentials, you may have life experience that you're mapping over to this new venture or whatever situation you're in. There's a degree of depth and experience and knowledge. You're making things happen. You've got skills. You've got value. What we can do is we can filter. We can dilute. We can edit ourselves without oftentimes even realizing it almost becomes like a default setting. And it can really cost us because the message that would really land, the one that my ideal client, Suzi, your ideal client, and as you're listening, your ideal client, the message they are longing to hear is often the one that we're afraid to say. It's kind of a conundrum, or at least it's the one that we can feel a little bit of like, oh, I can't say that. We've got a bit of a charge around, but actually we want to look at that and say, well, maybe that is what we need to be talking about. Maybe that is what we need to share.
Oh, I love this topic because it is kind of scary and it is kind of vulnerable. And I do want to go there with you as the listener. We do want to say this. Maybe we've even held back in saying, having this message come to you, but here it is coming at you in this episode. Because it can sometimes feel like there's this thing I really want to say. And I'm sure if you're listening, you can relate. A truth I know deep down is important for my ideal client, but I'm concerned that it's too polarizing or it might offend someone or a lot of people, or people will stop following me or they'll leave a negative comment on one of our posts. But here's the twist. And I'm saying those words like from me and they're totally true, but maybe you've had those thoughts too. What if the thing that you've been afraid to say is actually the very thing that is going to differentiate you, that will really resonate with your ideal clients, that will set you apart from the competition, and that will make your marketing way more effective? Imagine that. That's why this episode is all about how to say the thing you've been afraid to say in your marketing and why it changes everything when you can open up. Because very often we can be sitting on the most powerful part of our message, the thing we deeply believe, the thing that we have lived experience with, the thing that we've earned the right to say, but we're not saying it. Or we're burying it in a sea of polite, safe marketing that sounds a lot like what everyone else is saying. And so it just comes out as blah, 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 blah.
Oh, preach it, sister. I love it. And this is what we're exploring today, right? And hopefully getting you thinking about the things that you're holding back on in your message. And this can be kind of like when we are holding back, it's kind of like this unspoken truth effect starts to happen. And it can play out in our business in ways that you've been sharing, Suzi. Like we don't get noticed, we don't get seen. We're not sort of progressing in our own kind of growth as a leader in our area. And we want to really look at how to say the thing you've been afraid to say in your marketing and why it really can change everything. And in today's show, we're going to unpack why we don't say it and how that can be showing up for us. Because like we said earlier, it can be a little bit unconscious, a little bit default, and we want to shine a light on that. What shifts when you do finally speak your truth or say that thing that's kind of bubbling up for you? How to find the things you're holding back and express them powerfully. And we've got a bit of a challenge for you to help you put this into practice in your own content. Plus, and we love it when we do this, and we try and do it as often as we can, we have a free bonus download that is going to walk you through a process that we're going to share a little later in today's episode. So stay tuned for the process and also how you can get that download. We'll give you some information on that. And it's worth saying when we talk about, we're sort of saying, oh, the thing you've been afraid of saying, we're not just talking about one kind of message. Right. It can be many different ways that we filter ourselves. There can be many different types of messages or things that we want to communicate. Sometimes we think, oh, this message feels too raw, or maybe it's too strange or too bold or just too different from what others in our space are doing.
Yes. And let's go ahead and name a few of the kinds of messages that are the ones that Michelle is saying that go unsaid. So you might be sitting on a contrarian message, something that you believe and even know, but it goes against the grain in your industry. Maybe you're a copywriter who doesn't believe in pain point marketing, or a health coach who doesn't actually believe in balance. Or maybe it's a contentious message, like a political or ethical stance that you have. Something that makes you nervous about if you actually said it, there would be backlash, even though it's central to your values.
These are such great examples, the contrarian message, the contentious message. Maybe there's also a personal or a vulnerable message. The parts of your story that have perhaps felt a little too close to the bone that you've filtered out. Like maybe you've gone through burnout, but actually you're really feeling like you want to talk about this now, or you've gone through a major life shift and you're wondering, this is starting to feel like something I want to share with my audience. I can see how to connect the dots with my content and deliver value and attract more of the right people if I shared this. But, we can also have do I really want to share that? And we don't have to share everything. But if it's coming up for you, if you're getting that intuitive hit that, this personal message is something I might want to be talking about, it pays to just look at that with a healthy sort of conscious viewpoint. Like, yes, maybe this is the right time to share this. And the other type of message too that I wanted to throw in the pot while we're just sort of looking at this from different angles is what I'm going to call woo adjacent, Suzi.
Woohoo.
Woo, and sometimes we have that expression, they're a bit woo-woo, they're into the alternatives or the spiritual dimensions or something that's a little bit not of the mainstream. It might be that you want to talk a bit more about intuition or energy. Maybe you've just had some energy work done and you realize, I want to map this over to what I'm talking about, or feminine cycles or ancestral healing, or, whatever it might be. All those things can feel to us a little too out there for business. But for some of us, that's where our deepest work lives. That's where our most ideal client actually wants to meet us and talk about those things and know, oh, she's like me. She's also into tapping or whatever it might be. Or maybe another thing is kind of like a boundary setting message that you're feeling rising up, where you want to say, hey, this isn't for you. If you're somebody who's this, and this, I'm not your person. But it can be feeling uncomfortable as the desire to do that comes up. Also the fear, I'm going too narrow. Will there be enough clients in this space? Will I alienate people who might give me money otherwise?
Yeah, am I leaving money on the table?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the opposite. You've seen incredible results with your clients and you're holding back from saying it because making those bold promises can feel scary to put out there in public, right? And then there's another type of message, and they are the calling in messages where you want to lovingly challenge your audience. You want to show them what's really holding them back. And that can feel really vulnerable, right? Who am I to stand for them in that way? And this can be the case, especially when your brand is warm and supportive and suddenly you're like, I'm going to challenge these people. It can feel really scary.
Yeah, we have an expression in the mastermind called the love slap.
Yeah.
And that's kind of us really like going, you know what, no, this is, we need to call you out on this, or we need to kind of hold you accountable to this other thing that we know you really want to bring into your business. And why are you doing this other thing that's taking you away from that? And stand, like you said, making a stand for people. And that can be sometimes the thing that we know we need to say, but we're afraid to say it. And whatever shape it takes, we've given you a few there are others. The message you're not saying is almost always the one that brings the most power when you finally do say it. Because saying the thing doesn't just attract your ideal clients. Of course it does. And we're really, that's such a great benefit to this, but it also connects you back to yourself.
And that is such an important point. When we really want to do what we love every day, right? Our Her Business mantra, then this is about congruence. This is about integrity. This is about connecting back to yourself and running your business from who you truly are, what you truly believe, bringing your whole self to the business. So now that we've looked at what kind of messages we feel some fear about sharing, what we want to do now is dig a little deeper into why we feel that fear and give you some things, that you can do about it. For many business owners, especially women business owners, it's not just fear of being wrong or criticized. It is that fear of, as I said earlier, being too much, being burnt at the stake, right? Being too opinionated, too strong, too visible, too loud. And this is an idea that goes deep because the cultural messaging that we've absorbed from little girls growing into fully grown women, is be likable, don't ruffle feathers, make sure you're agreeable, be nice. And that conditioning, it can creep into our marketing without us even realizing it. And what happens is we play small, we stay kind of vague, we try to appeal to everyone because we want to be liked by everyone. And ironically, we end up resonating with who? With nobody.
Not even ourselves.
Yes, especially not ourselves.
Yeah, so true. I feel that really deeply as you're talking about that kind of unconscious sort of agreement we've made with society. And I think another thing too is like, we're the nurturers, we're the givers, you can't deny somebody support. And that seems selfish if you say I'm for you and I'm not for you, or I'm going to make a stand for this and all those things that come up. And there's a really awesome example. And this was someone we talked about in our last episode, and it kind of fits nicely together with what we said in the last show about her. And her name is Angela Council. She's in our Marketing Success Mastermind. She runs a business called Embrace, and she really helps women embrace menopause and thrive in menopause. And what we were talking about in the last show was how she got more and more specific about her ideal client, from just serving all women to serving women with menopause. And then the thing that she was afraid to say that came bubbling up was, you know what? I really want to be for women who want to thrive in menopause who don't want HRT. She has a specific point of view around hormone replacement therapy. And while this isn't yay or nay for hormone replacement therapy, that is her position. That was what she felt strongly about. But she kind of knew if she came out with that, she'd face criticism. She might get backlash. She might have, people gang up on her in her Facebook group or on social media and start, really like trolling her and things like that. So this was bubbling up. It was the thing she'd been a bit afraid or cautious or wary of saying. And they do really bubble up. Sometimes they start as just a whisper and you think, oh, like what if I could speak to women just who are wanting an alternative to HRT? And then thoughts can crash in like, oh, you can't do that. People get upset and da-da-da-da. But also, when she did come out and say that, it was really clear who she was for. And there were women out there who were looking exactly for that. So instead of kind of persisting with the broader message that didn't quite sit right with her and that she was sort of pushing down something she'd been wanting to say for ages, she dug into some courage. She got some support from the women close around her to kind of help her cross that threshold. And she was prepared to see some criticism and not be set back by it. That's the thing. When you start connecting to yourself and to what this truth is, that gives you strength. That kind of puts some armor on you to deflect the naysayers and the criticizers who might come up. When you make a stand, they're going to come up. People are going to troll you. People are going to disagree. And that's okay. Just see that for what it is. But you're also going to draw the people closer to you and attract the people to you almost magnetically who are really looking for an alternative, in this case for support with their menopause without taking HRT. And like Claire Zammit says, who we've had interviewed on the show, she has this great expression, you become the answered prayer for your client. And that's really what we saw Angela being, Suzi, when she stepped into that courageous space and said what she'd been a little reluctant to say.
Yeah, and as you said, it was very courageous of her, but it's paid off so well. And she just feels more herself. She's living her truth. She's speaking her truth. She's not trying to, shroud her message so that it appeals to more people. And people did come out of the woodwork and there was criticism, but she's just feeling so strong in who she is and who she's for that she can withstand that criticism. And maybe you've got a powerful insight for your clients or a specific position or philosophical viewpoint, but you keep softening it in your message. And maybe like Angela, you're worried about being judged harshly by your audience and what those around you might do, like they might become polarized. But what actually happens when we hold back is that we make it hard for our most ideal client to find us, to see us in the sea of competitors, because we're not standing out and saying, hey, this is exactly what you've been looking for. It's not a compromise. So let's bring this idea to life with a few examples. Situations we see often with women who are deeply skilled, who have a lot of lived experience and integrity, and they've been holding back just enough to blur the edges of their messaging. So let's say you are a business coach and you are absolutely done with this message of a 7-figure business dream. Now, you're a seasoned business coach. You are over the glorification of 7-figure growth. Maybe you've been feeling increasingly uncomfortable about it. It started as a niggle and has gotten louder and louder. And your most fulfilling work has been helping women simplify, actually downscaling bloated offers, cutting out vanity goals, reclaiming profit, joy, time, spaciousness in their businesses. But you're still leading with the language like scale your business and hit your next income level because you think that's where people want to be, that's what they want to hear, that's what they want to achieve. When what you're increasingly really wanting to say is, I help women burn down the empire and build a business that feeds their life, not the other way around. Now, this is a message that is going to repel your hustle chasers, but it calls in your true client, someone who perhaps has been feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the scale it, hack it, bigger, better, more of business growth.
Oh, yes, I love that example, Susie. Such a great one to really start to flesh out what this looks like in real life. I love that so much. And it's making me think of one of our masterminders, Anne Marie Wilshire, who is a voice coach who went through this very thing that you're talking about there in that hypothetical example. And Anne Marie is a really well-respected voice coach. She's got decades of experience. Like you're saying, you know, many times we've got a point of view, we have a philosophy, we have this knowing kind of almost in our bones. Our intuition is strong and it's based on real world experience and insight. And she basically became done with this idea of apologizing for being a bit woo woo. And I love this for her because she herself has been on her own journey of growth and exploration throughout her whole life. And some might call some of the things she's explored a bit woo woo. And it was great to help her embrace that part of herself in her marketing, in her messaging, and even in her product design. And actually her higher ticket product that she developed with our support, one of the distinguishing factors was her leaning more into this idea of presence and bringing your whole self and leaning into this lived experience she has around some of these other dimensions of life that you may not at first glance think relate to voice, but absolutely do relate to voice. And she had this unique perspective. Because even though she teaches voice skills and speaking with confidence, she began to see and feel more and more that her real genius, you know, the work she's doing with people is also bringing in the energetic aspects of voice and really helping people be truly heard. You know, because you can look at voice from a one-sided perspective. It's got the right tone and you pause and you understand how to use your actual voice box and things like that. Being heard is actually the ultimate goal of using our voice. And she really connected with that. She connected with helping women clear old stories from their voice as well, which was such an interesting idea. To banish the doubt demons. And this is actual phrasing that she now uses to talk about what she does. To turn their message into a memorable and inspiring experience for the people who receive it. To radiate confidence and be a voice of influence. And by doing that, by stepping into the fullest versions of themselves, her clients, they can tune into their presence in a deep and profound way. Now that is so compelling, I think, for the woman who's looking for that, not just here's how you inflect your voice at the end of a sentence. But what do most voice coaches say? They say things like master your message, speak with confidence. And I get it because that is kind of at the surface level what a voice coach will do for us.
Right.
But we can be afraid if it's relevant to us and it's bubbling up for us to say things like energetic alignment. Like, will people roll their eyes when I start talking like that?
Maybe.
Maybe, right? And the truth is, maybe people will, but your best clients, your most right fit clients, your ideal clients, they are not rolling their eyes. They're waiting for someone who can name what they've felt but maybe couldn't articulate or explain. You know, maybe Anne-Marie can come out and say, you're not just afraid of public speaking, you're afraid of being fully heard. And your body remembers that fear. Let's clear it so you can say what you are here to say, so you can fulfill your purpose and your potential.
So good.
Boom, right? That's going to land for the person that is for. So how can somebody out there feel called by a very surface message? Hey, speak with confidence, master your message, something everybody else is saying. But how called might they feel by that message, you're not just afraid of public speaking, you're afraid of being fully heard, and your body remembers that fear. If you've been looking for a voice mentor, if you've been looking for someone and you're comparing and contrasting different people, you've got the person who's watering down their message, and then you've got Anne-Marie. And if you're a person that's slightly woo inclined yourself, what are you going to do? You're going to choose to work with Anne-Marie.
I love this example. And we love you, Anne-Marie.
We do.
And as you said, you know, some people will roll their eyes. They're not the right people for you. And this is where I think it can get tricky because repelling people can feel counterintuitive to what we want to be doing in our marketing. Aren't I supposed to attract as many people as possible? Aren't I going to be this magnet for leads and people and sales? Why would I want to turn some people off? But you'll find that you get more cut through with your message that's clearly signaling The idea that is from the wonderful Seth Godin, where he says you want to be able to say, I made this for you, but not for you, and feel good about saying that.
That's the magic piece, right? Feeling good about saying it. And it's the feeling not good about it, the fear part of it, that stops us from saying it. And it's sort of it's a vicious cycle. We've got to find a way to step past that. And the cost of holding back isn't just about bland content, like that example we were saying, comparing voice coaches. There are so many other ripple effects that can happen in our businesses when we do hold back, when we do suppress the message, when we can't feel good about saying, I made this for you and not for you, like you were saying then, Suzi. We can attract the wrong leads. We can dilute our offers, the things we're selling, trying to please everyone and create products and services that just aren't as effective at achieving the outcome we really want to create and that we really know we can create if we just step more fully into this thing we might be holding back on. We can even begin to feel a disconnection for our own brand and clients like we were talking about before. And ultimately, all of this really stifles our growth. And I mean growth in a few different ways: business growth, personal growth, life growth, all the growth.
Yeah. And it is okay to be polarizing. And I'm speaking to you as you're listening. I'm speaking to me as I'm saying it, even if it is uncomfortable to polarize. Because if you're not repelling anyone, chances are you're not fully resonating with anyone either. You're not being a beacon there for your ideal clients. So what do we do about it? Let's chat about what happens when you do say the thing that you've been afraid or reluctant to say. Because when that moment comes, when you stop softening your message, when you stop avoiding what you really want to say, something profound shifts. This is the unspoken truth effect in action. It's like your messaging suddenly clicks into gear and you go from being nice, and I'm doing air quotes, being a nice, competent voice in a crowded space, to being the one they've been waiting for, that answered prayer, as Claire Zammit says. Why? Because you're finally speaking from the inside out, not just what you think you should say, but what you deeply believe. Now, that kind of messaging has texture. It's real. It's brave. It creates emotional clarity for your ideal client. They get that you see them. They know that you get it. And more importantly, they know that they can trust you because you understand them. So this happened just last week when I shared a story in an email about something that happened years ago when PJ and I were running 3 separate businesses internationally, and we were living in Arizona. And the businesses at the time were all doing very, very well, better than we could ever have dreamed of when we started them. And so we had reached that pinnacle of traditional success. Business was booming. The bank account looked amazing. But I felt like my life on the outside was a lie. And while I'd reached this point of success in business, I had money like I'd never seen before, all these material things available to me. On the inside, I was deeply unhappy. But I didn't stop to analyze that feeling at the time. I didn't take a pause to reason with myself. I didn't share it with anyone. I didn't slow down even when I knew I needed to. And the thing is that despite having all the things I had wished for, I didn't know how to slow down. I didn't know how to do anything other than the work hard model that had worked for me to get to that point. And I pushed and I pushed and I worked, not for the money, but because I didn't know what else to do. I only knew work. I had no vision, no idea about a different way of business or of life. And so my frequent international flights, the meetings that filled my schedule, the no time to eat anything good for my body, no exercise, excessive alcohol at the time, no time for friends, no time to do anything I actually enjoyed, no time to decompress at the end of the day. That was my life. And while I may have been financially free, I was actually very trapped. I was trapped in the responsibility of my team and my customers, and I was working multiple time zones. I was exhausted. I was trapped because I didn't know a way out, but I knew I needed to make a shift. I was trapped because I secretly feared making the shift. And the work, the hustle, the pace I'd been running at, it just wasn't ending. And I know now that so many of my ideal clients are in their own version of that story that I wasn't sharing because I felt embarrassed. That was what I had created for my life, that I wasn't being a role model for what I stand for now. And after sending that email out, I've had people reach out to me and it resonated with them. So now I am so happy that I did share it, even though that story makes me feel a little embarrassed. Like, really, Suzi, you should have known better, which is why I hid it in the first place.
Oh, this is such rich, fertile ground. Thank you. Thank you for sharing
Mm,
that,
thank you.
both in the world and here on this show and being a model for that. And I want to just pick up on a couple of things you said and maybe even ask you a question about it.
Mm,
You kind of talked about being embarrassed. And I think you've touched on something that is really important to talk about on the show because oftentimes, we want to hide our mistakes. We want to hide the
right.
time we didn't do it right. But that's probably where our clients are right now. And they actually need to see that. We don't have to be in the ivory tower with everything figured out.
Mm,
We actually can build more rapport, more connection, more trust, more faith, more belief that we can help people when we can share the times things didn't work out.
mm,
And I've just loved watching you because we've, worked so closely together for, well, gosh, more like a decade.
mm.
And I've just watched you get more and more, step more and more into this. It began like, well, we couldn't even see Suzi on the website when, you kind of hid yourself, you know what I mean? And you've been really becoming more and more visible and sharing more and more. And like the flip side is this, we don't have to share everything about our lives, but
Right.
there are things that you will get intuitive hits on or strong calls to share in your business that you might go, oh, I'm embarrassed to share that. Or, oh, will they think less of me? How can they see me as their business mentor who's talking about
Right.
living the life you love when I have to confess that I was on the surface looking like I had a life you loved and I didn't
Mm,
love it, you know? And
mm,
so,
mm.
that's to me just so inspiring to hear how you identified that and then move through it. And it's been a journey for you. Like I've watched you progressively get more courageous, clearer, I think, about what you want to say, and really choosing to go there and explore places maybe you're embarrassed about or things that didn't
Mm.
work.
Mm. And that word embarrassed is very real. It's like, come on, Susie, you
Mm.
should know better. You're teaching about living a life you love, like you said. And I find that, look, I still struggle with this. There's things that I want to say that it's like, well, that's not very good role modeling. So I think it's like not teaching from the point where the wound is still, open,
Very
but
good
really
point.
teaching from the pain. And I don't know whose concept that is that I'm borrowing here, but actually like from the lesson that I've learned, and that it's okay to communicate even when something isn't 100% clear. If it's a little messy, we can take people through the process of, look, it's still a little bit messy. But this is a lesson, Michelle, and you said, you're seeing me go through it. I'm committed to, this, as a friend of mine says, marketing from the inside out, and really knowing that the things that we've been afraid to say, but that come from that lived experience, all that wonderful knowledge that we have, is just I think part of it, Michelle, is having you say, yes, tell that story, or having my mastermind say, yeah, step
Mm.
more into you. People want more of you. Anyone can be a business coach teaching women how to grow a business, but no one has the 30 plus years of lived experience and has been through, the things that you could share and add
Mm.
value to. And so there's so much depth that we could go to in this episode. And right now I find myself wanting to get myself out of the spotlight in this conversation, Michelle.
Well, there's a little edge of growth there for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
normal.
Yeah, and that's normal. And that, yeah, so those embarrassing moments, like I never told that story. And that even has another layer to it, for years and years and years. And then I happened to tell it once. And as I said, I told it last week in an email. And I'm like, oh, that helped someone. And
Yes.
that's all I want to do. I want to connect with those women and let them see that I get what it's like to have the burden of owning a business, to not feeling like you're doing it right, to having to look good on the outside, and it's a, excuse me, shit show happening behind the curtains.
Mm.
So yeah, but it hasn't
Mm.
always been okay because we want
Mm.
to uphold our professional persona. We
Mm.
want to be seen as, the stars that we are, and not show the shadow side. So enough. Enough.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to just kind of build off that and say that I just thank you again for just peeling the curtain back a little bit on the emotional stuff that goes on and the psychological head stuff that goes on because we're all human
Yes.
beings having a business experience. And a big thing that really is becoming very prominent for me in the work I'm doing, trying to help people go from where they are to where they want to be, is normalizing the struggle, like normalizing the messy, imperfect, you're going to do this and it may not work, but you're going to learn 3 things. And then from that, you'll be able to change and pivot. And really, we talk about this all the time in the mastermind about foundation moves, about mastery, about sticking with things, about kind of finding what worked and learning and moving on. And this is having a growth mindset. And I think the growth mindset gives us permission and a way to think about all our content that we might be embarrassed or afraid or worried about sharing, if we're demonstrating the growth mindset that, hey, I had this setback, but that didn't stop me. And look where I got to now. Or actually, you see me here in the front of house with this, and this going on. And it all looks great. But let me tell you, this took me 6 months to figure this out. And the first time I did it, it was terrible. And so just for all of us, if we can just relax around having to be the guru on the mountain with everything figured out, but instead be the guide, the supporter, the person that helps out normalize for our clients the struggle and the process. And then our value as people who are maybe providing the process or providing the support or providing the accountability actually becomes more real. And so anyway, I know that we're you want to get off this topic, and that's fine. I'm going to move on. But when you say what's true, which is what you were doing then, Suzi, and I could feel it, the right people find you. Yeah. And the wrong people, they quietly exit. And that is a gift for everybody involved. For you, for the people that exited, for the other clients that are, going to, have the waters muddied by somebody who may not be the tribe, and so on. So as you're listening to us sort of go deep on this, you might be thinking, well, okay, some things are kind of bubbling up for me, but I'm not quite sure what it might be. How do you find the thing? How do you put your finger on the thing that you might have been holding back? And you might need to find your way into it. You might just start imperfectly and then send an email and realize, oh, that resonated. I'll do a bit more on that, or I'll explore that a bit more, or give yourself time to percolate. So here are some thought starters for you as you're investigating what's holding you back. Think about what is frustrating you about your industry that no one is talking about. Like you're coming home at the end of the day going, can you believe it? This was what they said at the conference, And just as you hear us go through these thought starters, know we're going to put these in the download for you. So kind of absorb, but also know you can dig into this more deeply with the free resource we're going to give you a link to. So what frustrates you about the industry? And nobody seems to be talking about it, or they're only talking about it behind closed doors. What do your best clients thank you for saying, even when it was hard for them to hear? Like, Suzi, I can only imagine the lovely emails you got from people that really were grateful for what you shared. And so think about, as you're listening to this, where is that time when someone says, you know what, that was really hard for me to hear, or I didn't think I was going to enjoy that, but I got so much out of it. What do you believe that goes against the grain of the usual advice in your space? And Suzi gave you some great examples of that earlier. Like, you're the health coach that doesn't believe in balance, and everybody's talking about balance, right? What do you see others doing that you know isn't working, and you actually really, if you had your druthers, you'd be calling that out, that practice or that process or that approach, but you've stayed silent about it? Or what's the thing you might say to yourself, and this is like the catch-all, and I think this is going to really help you to put your finger on this. Where are the times in your life, in your business life, where you're saying something to yourself in your mind, you're going, a sentence that begins with the phrase, if only. Like, if only I could just work with women who didn't want to use HRT, for example, in Angela's case. Let me go through all the A names before I get to Angela. Yeah, and so like she could be there in the room and she's having to field more and more questions about HRT, and then seeing women back and forth about HRT and no HRT, and she's just like, oh, if only I could just not have this conversation. Yes. And I could just be in a room with women who have already made the decision they want to thrive in menopause without HRT. Or if only I could, stop people from cycling around this idea that's so unhealthy, that's so prevalent in the industry. Or, if only I could share a little more vulnerably and connect with people at a more emotional level, I think I'd get more people wanting to work with me. So just think, where is that if only in your own thinking?
I love these questions. They are so powerful. And as you're listening to them right now, maybe there are some themes and truths emerging for you. We're going to put these questions inside of the free resource that we're providing. So don't worry if you didn't catch them all. And maybe some of those truths are unspoken, the ones that are bubbling up for you, but you're feeling some energy around exploring being bolder and more transparent with that messaging. And so if that's happening, pay attention to that. And if you do have something that you know you're holding back on or that you're curious about leaning into but not sure about how to go about it, let's take a look at that, because once you've identified the bold promise or the contrarian view or the specific niche you want to speak to that you discover if only I could, the next step is expressing that message, which is what we're going to dive into right now.
Yeah, and we've got a simple framework that might help you with this. And we love a good framework here on the show, and this will be in your download, so you can refer back to it. And you want to think of it as the 3 S's. And there are 3 S's in this framework. Surprise, surprise. Signal, stand, and support. I'll explain what they mean. But this is a way to structure your message, this thing that's bubbling up that you've maybe been afraid about or holding back on. It's a way to structure your message so you're not blurting or apologizing or over-explaining, or like you said, Suzi, kind of speaking from the wound or the ashamed place, right? You're simply guiding your audience through something important with confidence, compassion, and clarity. And here's how the 3 S's work. The first S, like I said, is signal. So what is the signal? You're just sending a signal. You're letting somebody know this is important, this is intentional, and maybe it's even a little different to what they've heard you say before. And this signaling, like it's almost like you tell them what you're going to tell them first. Like it's like, hey, rant ahead, or hey, this might not be something you've heard me talk about before. This creates safety. Like, oh, okay, all right, well, that makes sense now that she's talking about it. I can see she doesn't usually talk like this. And it also kind of grabs attention. It's sort of hooky, right? Oh, what's she going to say that she hasn't said before? So signal is the first S. Then you move into stand. That's our second S. And this is where we're standing without apology. We're saying the thing clearly. No excessive disclaimers or watering down, even though I tell you what, your mind, your spirit, your emotions might be screaming at you to do that. Stand. This is your core message. And then 3, support. So we start by signaling, hey, this is something different. We stand, we say the thing clearly without apology, and then we move into support. We follow that with context, with empathy, with next steps. This is the framework. This is the process. This is the next step. Now, we're not backpedaling. We're actually helping our audience integrate the message rather than resist or misunderstand it. Maybe there's some more context, some more explaining, definition of a term or an example to bring it to life, or a story from your own lived experience. We provide support for people to really integrate and understand what we're saying.
Love it. And we're going to unpack this in more detail for you and give you some examples. And what we want you to know is that we're also giving you this framework inside of the handy download that we've prepared, along with the examples that we're going to share. So listen up, knowing that you can grab the details in the download. And I'll give you a link for that a little later in the show.
So when you've got a message that feels risky, like that's exactly what we're talking about today, whether because it's bold or vulnerable or unconventional or boundary setting, all those kind of examples and ways to think about it we gave you earlier, this 3S framework gives you this grounded way to express that with integrity and impact, because we can feel a bit fluttery about it, a bit uncertain. So, for example, let's say you're a business coach and you're taking that contrarian stance that Suzi was talking about earlier in your market, where you're coming out with an anti-hustle approach, while most of your competitors are celebrating the hustle. So the signal might look like this. Hey, this might be different from what you've heard me talk about before, or from what conventional wisdom says is the way to grow a business. So signal. Then stand. But I don't believe hustling harder is the answer to succeeding in your business. In fact, I think it's part of the problem. See, we stood strong in that. We did. There's no equivocation there. We are like, boom. It's not only not the answer, it's part of the problem. Now, this is very hooky content. It's very interesting content. And I'm giving you a really short version of the 3 S's, but you could see how this could be expanded into a longer conversation or a blog post or a video or even a series of messaging through a campaign. And then support. Here's what I've seen after coaching hundreds of women. Growth doesn't come from grinding it out. It comes from clarity, boundaries, and systems that honor your energy. And now you've opened the door and giving some support and next steps to people. You see how I've sort of said it doesn't come from grinding. It comes from clarity. It comes from boundaries and systems that honor your energy. Now they're thinking, well, what are the boundaries and systems that honor my energy? And so now I can open the door on maybe if I'm doing a social post, just talking about one of those boundaries. Or I can talk about it at a global level or whatever it might be. It might be a quick tip in a social media post. It might be an invitation to go deeper with you on a tree training you've got coming up online on a webinar. It might be to book a call, or it might be to buy this resource that you've got, or whatever it is.
So good. I want to share another example that might be if you're coming out with a more spiritual or esoteric message than you shared before. And so the signal in this case, the first S, is I used to feel nervous talking about this in my business. The stand is, but the truth is, I build my strategy around lunar cycles. I track launches based on energetic seasons. This is how I stay in alignment. And it's why my work resonates so deeply. So that's the stand, very clear. Then the support is, you don't have to share this belief to benefit from it. But if you do, I think you're going to feel right at home here. And then you can invite someone to join your Facebook group or opt in for your newsletter and begin the journey with you. And I love sharing this example with you because for years, PJ and I would set our promotional cycles around what the moon cycles were at the time. And we still today schedule essential projects away from when the planet Mercury is retrograde because it inevitably impacts communication and technology. And while it's woo-woo, it works for us to follow what we trust and have witnessed over the decades. And here I am sharing this woo-woo information with you now, even though I haven't really shared it before because it sounds kind of out there.
And I did not know that about you. I knew that Mercury retrograde would definitely, but I didn't know that you used to plan everything around that. And it is so fascinating. It's interesting content. And for people that go, oh, I just love Suzi even more for sharing that, it's bringing people further and further into our world. And it's such a great example, like a meta example of what happens when we can say the thing we've been afraid to say in our marketing. I love it. Another example is if you've got a boundary message to share. Remember we were sharing the different types of things you might have been sort of holding back on? That is, you're being clearer than ever before about what you will and won't do, or what you will and won't stand for, or who you will and won't work with. So the signal might be, and some of these signals can be interchangeable, right? But the signal might be, I want to be really transparent with you about a really important boundary that I've set in my business, and I want to talk to you about it. The stand is, this program is not for you if you're looking for a magic bullet instant solution. I work with women who can put their need for instant gratification aside in order to put in the effort to achieve their bigger vision, knowing it probably won't happen overnight. I'm making
Would you write that for me? That is what her business is for.
Right. Well, I was kind of tuning into you, but I was also tuning into what we say in the mastermind. We use those phrases. Hey, if you're looking for a magic bullet, this is not the program for you.
No, that's right.
And the strength and the confidence and the power that comes in that. But we're not just making a stand for us. We're making a stand for the ideal client, for the woman that we really want to hear this, who needs this. We know in our bones, hey, if you are after just chasing the next bright, shiny thing, do not join our mastermind. It's not a magic bullet. Some women come in, and we've had this case in the first week. One thing they learned made them $50,000 in a week, and they paid for their year of mastermind a few times over. But we've got other women who, it takes a few months, maybe even their whole first year, to get some of these old things out of the way and to really grasp their strategic plan and, get a few support systems in place and get clear on their ideal client and all those things. And we're not going to sugarcoat that. And we want to work with women who are prepared to put their instant gratification aside. So making the stand, it just juices you up and it juices the people up you most want to serve. So signal is, hey, I want to be really transparent with you. There's something that I want to really share that I haven't before about the boundaries that I am putting into the way I work and who I work with. The stand is, this program's not for you if you're looking for a magic bullet, etc. And the support is, hey, that's not a judgment. It's just something I'm really clear about. If that's not where you're at, if you really do just want, the instant quick fix, all good. But I am not the mentor for you. But if you're ready to put in the work and manage the tension that a big vision can create, I've built something really powerful for you. And now I'm opening the door on what is that thing? How can I support you? How can I help you understand? So I'm giving you some context. Hey, look, I'm not judging. Quick fix, you go for it, right? But I'm not your person. But if this is something you are prepared to hold some tension, here's how I can support you.
I love it, and these women for whom that is the message they need to hear, those that resonate, they're going to come out of the woodwork, metaphorical woodwork, and come find you. And what I like about this 3S framework, signal, stand, support, that it gives you a way to say the hard thing without abandoning yourself. You stay true to your message and you stay in relationship with your audience. And here's the nuance. This isn't about ranting or being provocative just for the sake of it. And we know some thought leaders, again, air quotes, that do that. This is about anchoring your messaging in values and being of service. So you're not trying to shock. You're not trying to stop the feed. You're trying to free the people up who are stuck by saying the thing that you've been longing to say, and likely they've been longing to hear, and quite often from you. Now, you might say, this might be controversial, but I think the more is better approach to marketing is what's keeping women stuck. Or you might say, I've waited years to say this publicly, but I'm done pretending that the hustle culture is the only path to growth. Or you might say, here's what I believe. And I know it won't be for everyone. Now, notice how each one of these is clear, it's value-based, and it's others-focused. You are leading with conviction when you speak like this, not with aggression. You're opening up a conversation. You're not shutting one down. And that's the art of saying something, even if it's something you feel a bit apprehensive about sharing, but doing that with power.
Oh, I'm going goosey. I love it when we get to this point in the show. So we promised earlier that we had a bit of a challenge for you. And here's your challenge this week. We really would love to bring this into today, tomorrow, your immediate future. How do you get some momentum around what we've talked about, especially if this has tapped something in you? And so we want to invite you to really create a space to give yourself a chance to reflect and take bold action. Like, how can you carve out 30 minutes today, tomorrow, or in the next few days? And think through these questions. And again, these will be in the download to support you. What's one thing you've been filtering or avoiding in your content? Just jot it down, and you might unleash the floodgates and realize, oh my gosh, there's 10 things. Fine, write them all down. The next is, what are you saying the safe version of in terms of what you actually believe? Like, you might have dipped your toe into like being a bit contentious or saying what you believe, but you've knocked the edges off it. You've kind of stayed safe with it, and you're ready to find your way into a bolder, clearer, making a stand type of way to communicate it. And that's what, Suzi, you modeled so beautifully before. Like, you were sort of saying those stories, and you even hinted there's a deeper version of that story that might come out eventually. So what are you saying the safe version of that you actually believe, but there's more to it? And maybe you can write a single sentence or a paragraph that says the thing you've been afraid to say using those 3 S's, the 3S framework of signal, stand, and support. So pick something from those idea generators we've just given you and try out this signal, stand, and support languaging, because sometimes just getting the language, the words in our mouths, the starting point, that thin edge of the wedge, then we can just find ourselves off and running and talking about it. And you don't have to post it yet, although we'd love it if you feel confident to do that. But write this message in your voice, your truth, your tone. Signal, stand, and what's the support, context, next step you might move into. And then read it out aloud to yourself. Notice how it feels in your body. Does it feel true? Does it feel like relief? Do you feel some butterflies of, actually, this isn't fear, this is excitement? Do you start to see some voices maybe coming in that want to knock you down a bit? Just observe kind of what's going on.
And what a relief to be expressing ourselves from who we truly are and what we truly believe and pulling down any facade. And I love this practice, and I love that you've laid it out like that, step by step, Michelle, and offered up a challenge for you, if you're listening, to go ahead and make this practice your own. Michelle, for me, I know that whenever I've leveled up and I've stepped into sharing things like we've been talking about today, I know it's helped me immensely to have sounding boards and advisors, around me, especially if it's a big strategic change. And so I want to encourage you to find those sounding boards, get some trusted people around you who've got real world experience. Of course, that is what we're creating inside of the Her Business Network. That is what we create inside of the Marketing Success Mastermind that Michelle and I run. And if you're not currently a part of either of those, we're going to put links for you in today's show notes to check those out. But regardless of where you find this support, it really is key. Because while we've given you some frameworks and encouragement and a juicy download and examples, it's hard to step out in this way. And it's so important. I hope you've realized that today. It's hard, but it's so important for your business growth, for creating the kind of business and life that you love. So we hope that you're encouraged to say the thing that you've been afraid of or reluctant to say in your marketing. And we hope that you can see how this change is going to change so many things for the better in your business and in your life and how you feel about yourself. Now, before we wrap up today, I want to share with you how you can get access to the links and the resources and the juicy download that we've mentioned in today's episode. And I'm going to give you that in just a second. But firstly, I want to give a shout out to one of our frequent listeners, Amanda Paul from Brand Injection. Now, she works with property developers. She helps them propel their sales cycles and reduce their overwhelm by helping them create lead generating sales pages, and then she helps them optimize those so that they get the best results possible. And she does that through her business, Brand Injection, which you'll find at brandinjection.com.au. So if you're a realtor, you want to check that out. And she said this, 5-star review, she said, Suzi and Michelle, they just make content creation makes sense. I always come away with so many thought bubbles and ideas. I can't recommend this podcast enough if you're confused with all the information that's out there. Every podcast streamlines everything and it cuts out the fluffy. Thank you, Amanda. We so appreciate your review. Now, if you enjoyed this episode or any episode of the show, we would love it if you also would leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. We would love that so much. As I said, anything we mentioned here on the show, and we mentioned quite a few things that you will want to follow up with to take this conversation deeper, they can be found over on our show notes, which you will find at herbusiness.com / my words are getting jumbled, herbusiness.com / sayit, SAYIT. That's herbusiness.com / sayit.
Would you just say it, Suzi? Just say it.
Just say the freaking thing. Okay, that's herbusiness.com / sayit. That's where you'll find your download. You'll find links to the resources we mentioned today and a summary of today's episode, those prompts, everything we said earlier. Now, Michelle, we've got another great episode touching on a subject that I think is super juicy coming up. Do you want to tell us a little about that?
Yeah, this actually builds on, we've recently released an episode, our annual content marketing tools that we're loving as this episode comes out in 2025. And one of the tools we were loving is custom GPTs. And we are going to talk to someone who is a super user of custom GPTs in her business. And that is the amazing Tina Tower. And we're looking forward to speaking to Tina. Always a good conversation when we talk to Tina. And she's also a person who says it, right? Like I love her content because she goes out there and she says the thing that, you know, maybe is contrarian or a personal message, but she does it so well. So definitely check her content out for examples of what we've been talking about today, but we'll get more with her in our next episode.
Yeah, so that episode is coming up soon. So if you don't already subscribe to the show, be sure to click follow or subscribe wherever you are. That episode, once again, is going to be about custom GPTs and using AI in a way to highly leverage your time and efforts in your business. So subscribe, follow. It's coming out real soon. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go today?
I've loved this chat so much. I love it when we get to the goosebump sort of level. It is so important. We're human beings having a business experience. And I would just say, grab the download, make that space this week for that challenge that we laid down for you. And we'd love to hear how you go with it.
Thank you for listening. We love doing this show for you. Michelle, thank you.
Pleasure.
We will see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. Thanks again for listening. Bye for now.